I thought I'd drop a line. The weather's cool, the folks are fine.
Hi, I'm Jack.
And I'm Barbara, and we'd like to welcome you to our home.
We're going to share with you some interesting stories about our lives and hope you find it entertaining.
I've known Jack for 64 years. We've been married 60 plus years. We have 5 wonderful children and 10 very, very super grandchildren, and we've all enjoyed many, many good times in this home.
So Dad, tell me who that is and tell me something about him.
Well, this is my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side. Unfortunately, I never really got to know them too well during the war. The Nazis took them and we kind of lost track of them, and to our best of our knowledge, they were executed in a concentration camp. She always used to grab me with the chin like this, real tight, and I didn't like it. You know, I'd kind of duck it, but I really have very few memories of them.
So tell me about this photo. Who's in there?
Well, this is the last picture you kind of took as a family before the war affected us. I don't know how old I was here, maybe 2 or 3, and it's my mother, my father, and my sister Anita, my sister Ruth. It was one of the few pictures I have of the family.
So tell me a little bit about your father, what you remember. How old, how long?
Well, when we came to this country, my father was very ill and legally wasn't eligible to come, but they doctored him up. They made him look as good as possible. He was an accountant in Vienna, and he died shortly after we got to America. So I was 6 years old when he passed, and I really never got to know my father. It's really, felt sort of cheated.
Do you have any memory at all? Any one fond memory at all of doing something with your dad or anything?
I kind of just remember that he was always, when we escaped from Vienna, we went to London and we wanted to run, and I really had no real memories other than when we got to Rochester. I saw him in the hospital bed, but I wasn't really exposed to too much of it as a young child.
What was his name?
Bernard.
So when you said you escaped from Vienna, so where were you born?
I was born in Vienna.
Uh-huh.
My mother was from Poland, and during the war, I really don't know, but we were constantly on the run to get away before they locked us up, you know.
Before they locked you up, you were locked up?
Well, no, they would take you to concentration camps. They would take the men that were healthy to work, and they would take the women to work too. And I'm not even sure what happened to most of the children.
Do you remember any of your relatives that were taken away, or do you have? Are you 6 years old, maybe just too young to even remember?
Most all my relatives were killed in concentration camp. I just knew of Moses, who owned a soft drink factory, and the Germans came and took the factory away from him, and he tried to challenge them, and they killed him, you know. So
Who was Moses, your uncle? Or?
yes, was an uncle.
So while your father was sick, who supported the family?
Well, I really don't know. My mother worked as a maid when we went to London, because I know she brought me to the home to stay with her sometime, but that didn't work out. And she did. I guess they had a little money back then and were able to survive because they used that money to get out of the country.
And your siblings, so would you have a younger sister and an older sister?
No, they were both older than me.
Tell me a little bit about them, or as kids, did you?
You know, it was kind of strange.
What were their names?
Anita and Ruth. Ruth was, I think, 6 years older than me, is that right, baby?
I believe so, yes.
And Anita was 9 years older. And they had both, in Europe, people learned how to speak English. Though they both knew some English. I never went to school yet. And So therefore, I only spoke, the little I did, I spoke German.
So tell me about this picture here. Who's in that picture and what's going on there? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, this is long ago when Ruth and Armin got engaged. They went to a nightclub called Kitty Kelly's on Miami Beach. It was pretty well known. I wasn't old enough to go in, but they got me in somehow, and it was a famous nightclub, and it was an interesting night. Matter of fact, that nightclub, I believe, is the nightclub where Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin first appeared anywhere in a show. So I do remember that night.
So here, tell me about your sister.
My sister is me. In Europe, young boys wore their hair like that, and that picture of my sister is me. If you kind of look at the picture of the whole family, you'll kind of see that that's the way it looked.
Can you tell me about, do you remember where that was or what's going on there?
You know, that was me, and we lived in Albany for a short time. That was me with my mother in Albany. I don't remember ever seeing this picture before. It's kind of, yeah.
What about that? What are you, a little cowboy or what's going on there?
Oh yeah, that was fun that day. I was kind of riding the wild horse.
Where was that? Was that?
No, that was taken, believe it or not, in Miami. You know.
So tell me about it. So you left. How did you leave? So what was the route you took?
How we left Europe?
Yeah.
You know, I do remember that. You know, before we left Europe, the things that I do remember. There was no way to take money out of the country. The Germans didn't let you take money out of the country. But there were young guys who would make a deal with you. They would smuggle your money over the border and put it in a bank in Switzerland for you, but they would keep half. And you never knew for sure if they were really going to do it or not, and they could keep it all. But there were a few of those guys that had a good reputation, and my mother gave two of them some money to deposit for her in Switzerland. And the funny thing was they both did it. They deposited half and kept half. Also, my mother had European furniture that she paid a company to take out of her house and ship it to her sister in New York. And my mother, who was very good at sewing, opened up one of the mattresses and put some of her jewelry hidden in the mattress. And I remember clearly when we were leaving one of the countries, I can't remember what, the German soldiers took me alone away from my family and took me in a room. And they were nice guys. They were really nice to me. And when they got done talking to me and making friends, they asked me, what did your parents hide? And I really didn't know that they hid anything. I told them nothing. And the interesting thing was, when the furniture finally got to us in Albany, the whole family opened up the different mattresses looking for the jewelry. And the mattress I looked at as a kid, the jewelry was in there, but I didn't find it. And then my mother found the jewelry in the mattress.
So where did the boat leave from? Do you remember?
You know, it was such a, you know, that's one thing I remember clearly. You know, they would have air raids where everybody in the city would turn out all the lights because in case enemy planes would come in and bomb you. And they would have wardens, and you got big fines if you put on lights or drove a car, you just couldn't do it. And we had tickets for the last ship that was leaving London for America. And we were in a train station doing an air raid shelter, and there was no way to get to the ship, and the ship was going to leave like in a few hours. We kept waiting for the air raid to end. And my mother went to these different taxi drivers and asked them would they take her now during the air raid to the ship. And of course none of them would because they would lose their license. It was maybe back then, they told me like a $20 ride, $25 ride. And finally she found one cab driver He says, yeah, I'll take you for like $800. And my mother gave him the $800. And we went to the ship, and we got on the ship going to New York, to Ellis Island.
Do you remember anything about that ride on the boat at all?
I remember I didn't like it. It was rough. It wasn't like a cruise ship. I don't remember much. I remember being seasick, and I don't remember much about the ride, but I couldn't wait for it to be over.
What were your thoughts like coming to the United States? Did you even know you were coming to the United States? Did you know anything about it?
I didn't understand it as a kid. I did not understand it, but when we got to New York, and my mother had a sister and a brother-in-law there that we were going to stay with, we were in a car driving to their place. And I looked out the window of the car, and I was convinced all the Americans were crazy because they were all dressed up so weird. And what I didn't understand that night, it was Halloween. And when I saw all the people as a kid, that was my impression of Americans, and that has always stayed with me.
So when you arrived, you lived with,
My mother's sister, Bertha, and Jacob.
and this is in Rochester?
No, this was in New York City.
Do you remember where you lived? Did they have a house, an apartment?
I don't know, but it was just like, I walked around a little bit. It wasn't a fancy neighborhood, you know.
So at this point, you didn't speak English? Did your sisters?
I
or-
did not speak English.
Who spoke English in your family?
My mother spoke a little, my sister spoke a little, and my father was very ill.
So you had to go to school, or?
Eventually, when we got to Albany, I had to go to school.
So how do you go to school not speaking English?
It was the toughest point of my life, probably. Nobody in the school spoke German, and nobody taught you how to speak English if you spoke German. So, and German was not a good language to speak when the United States was fighting the Germans in the war. The other kid thought you were a German, you know, so it wasn't, you know, you had to defend yourself. It wasn't.
But what does that mean you had to defend? Did you get in a lot of fights?
Oh yeah, everybody would want to beat up the German, you know. It was like, I was scared to leave the school, you know. It was like rough. Then I made friends with one boy who kind of helped me, little Sonny.
Did you learn how to fight? Were you a good fighter when you were a kid?
No, I didn't know how to fight. Nobody taught me.
So, I mean, you get your butt kicked every day, basically?
I took a lot of whippings. It was like, I didn't have a good record.
How would you possibly pass school if you can't speak English?
I don't know if I passed or not. I progressed, and it was difficult.
So, your born name is not Jack, correct?
No, my born name was Izzy, ISSI. And when we moved to Rochester, we lived over Raven's Fish Market. And the lady from Raven's Fish Market, Mrs. Raven, said, "You got a nice boy, you can't call him Izzy. It's just not an American name." She said, "Well, what should we call him?" My mother said. And she says, "Call him Jack."
So tell me, how did you eventually learn to speak English?
Well, I had one friend, Sonny, and every once in a while he would take me to the movies. He'd pay the 9 cents for me, and we'd see the double feature, and I loved Abbott and Costello, and I'd go see all the Abbott and Costello movies. I'd see them 2 times when I was in the theater, and I really believe I learned to speak English from watching the movies. And one thing I learned for sure by watching Abbott and Costello, I knew who's on first.
You know, I know as a kid, and even to this day, you're somewhat passionate about playing the trumpet. How early did you start playing the trumpet, and who taught you to play?
I wanted to be in a school band, and I started taking lessons from a teacher, and I really loved playing the music. Matter of fact, I really thought I was going to be a professional musician when I was a kid. So I loved the horn. I still have it, and I played it for one of our children's wedding, you know, which was kind of exciting.
As a kid, did you play any sports? Were you very athletic?
I was terrible at sports. I couldn't hit a baseball. I loved football, and we loved to play. We'd play on the street when I lived in Miami, and just played every day. So I loved playing football. Was I very good? I don't think so, but I loved it.
So tell me, like from 7 years old up to like 13, some of the highlights of your life that you remember. You know, did you ever start to do good in school? Were you ever a good student? Were you?
I always felt I was always behind in school because of my start, so I was never a good student. I always liked math, and I always wanted to go to movies. When we came to Miami, I always found a way to make the 9 cents to go to the movies. I don't know if I ever told you about the banana boat.
Good.
When there was no way to make money, I used to go down the Miami River where they emptied the banana boats. And when the stalks of bananas came off the boat to the truck, they were all green. But if there's one on that turning kind of yellow, the guy would cut it off and drop it on the ground. And I would pick up all those bananas, and I would take them to Overtown and sell them for a penny a piece. And I always had customers for my bananas, and as soon as I got 9 cents, I was off to the movies.
When did you move to Miami?
My stepdad, who my mother remarried this gentleman, got a job as a baker in Miami for one of the hotels, and we moved to Miami, and I might have been 8 years old.
As a kid, money was always tight, or I mean, were you able to?
Yeah, money was always tight, you know. In Albany and Rochester, my mother worked alone. She worked. I was home alone a lot of times. There was no money, you know. But we just had fun all the time anyway.
How'd you have fun?
I always met kids in the neighborhood, and we always did stuff horsing around, and just always have fun. Never spent money. Didn't know what money was, you know.
So, Mother, tell me, first of all, tell me who's in that photo.
In this picture is my father's whole family. He had 3 brothers and a sister and their wives when we were very young. My brother, my sister, my grandmother, my grandfather, and 2 of my cousins. And it was at a family Thanksgiving dinner that had everybody together.
Tell me a little bit about some of your relatives in there.
And this side is my grandmother and my grandmother and my grandfather, who I was very close with. They were very hardworking. They had an electrical store, and I used to like to go to the store and play with the wires and sort the batteries and all, and they were extremely good. I was the oldest of all the grandchildren, so I guess I got a little more attention than the others, but they were very good to me, and we just liked to be together. Our whole family always was together with all the cousins and nieces and nephews and aunts and uncles. We had family picnics once a year. We had New Year's Eve, usually at my mother and father's home. We used to have a New Year's party and go to the beach every week and meet at the beach, all 4 or 5 different families, and have a picnic, and really enjoyed ourselves.
Who's the swimsuit model?
This is a picture of my dad. He was a boxer. He used to box in Madison Square Garden. He won the Golden Gloves of New York State. And once he turned professional, and I was on the way, my mother made him stop, said he couldn't box anymore. There's a picture of him showing his muscles out on the beach. I was probably 2 or 3 years old.
You don't have to keep holding the pictures up. Once you're done, you can hold them up for a little bit of trouble. So, these are you, right? So who's that?
And this is of the grandchildren, and the youngest in their family took pictures all the time. So I think every 6 months there had to be a new picture of me so I could put it out for everyone to see.
You can let the pictures go after you do the intro. So how old were you in some of these pictures? Where were you born?
I was born in Rochester, New York, and regular family life, and I spoke English, so I had no problems.
Brothers and sisters, how
I
many?
have a brother that's the youngest. He's 8 years younger than me, and I have a sister 4 years younger than
Here,
me.
tell me who's in that picture.
And this picture is the three of us, my brother, my sister, and myself, taken in our backyard.
What are their names?
Rhea and Eugene.
Older or younger?
And Eugene happens to be a professional photographer.
Who's that?
And this picture is my brother, which I adored because I was 8 years older than him and I could brush him around. But I also had to babysit him. But he was a good kid. He's a good guy now too.
Who's in that picture, and do you know when that's from?
This picture is my mom, my dad, and myself at my Sweet 16 party. And I got all dressed up, and they got dressed up, and had a real nice time.
How about this? When's that? Where's that from? Who's in that?
This is my mom and dad and me. I think I'm about 2 years old on the beach and waiting to go into the water.
So tell me about this picture right here. What's that?
This is a picture of me in the backyard. I had just graduated from the 7th grade, and my mother made a party in the yard. But she made a party for everything, so this was something special that I was going to go on to junior high.
Here, this is one of your more famous pictures. Tell me, what's going on? Who are you serving?
This I never realized would be a very important picture. My mother was a president of an organization, and they were holding a dinner for Goldie Meir, who later became the Prime Minister of Israel, and she's now very famous in history. But we were given her table to serve. I was only 14 and scared to death, but I was to go bring her food and then bring her silverware. But she happened to be a very, very nice lady, and I never realized till years later she was very important.
Who's that? What's going on there?
This is a picture of my mom, my dad, and myself on my 2nd birthday.
In here?
This is a picture at my shower when I was getting married to Jack with both of my grandparents, my father's mother and my mother's mother, and my mother and myself.
How old were you in this shot?
This picture is Jack and I going out to celebrate our engagement. It was in 1954.
So tell me a little bit about your father.
My
Like,
father-
what are some of your fondest memories?
Everything. My father was something special. I just had an extreme close bond with him.
What was his name?
Bob.
Like, do you remember like any of the things you guys did together that
He
were really?
he would take me to the movies if my mother had hollered at me, and he'd say, "Come on, I'll take you to the movies." He would take me anywhere I want to go. He would do anything I'd ask, and I really never asked for much, so he kept saying, "You've got to let me help you." But he was really a cheerleader to me, just a Superman. He just was there all the time. I know he worked hard, and he worked in a factory long hours, but when he came home, he always had time for us. When I was real young, I wanted to play the piano. We didn't have a piano. And he went with a friend of his, and they bought a used piano on the back of a truck and brought it home and put it in the house, which made my mother very mad. And I promised I would practice all the time, and I took lessons, and I never practiced. I just wanted to sit down and play. I don't want to practice and do anything else. But my dad liked to play it too, so it was good.
What was your dad's professional name?
Bob K.O. Gisson.
Because he won most of his fights by knockout. He was a little guy, but had mammoth arms, and he'd put them away, you know.
Tell me a little bit about your mother, her name. And...
My mother was strict to me, more so than my father, but she always was interested if I sang in a song in a school play. She was there. She'd leave work to come there. She made picnics every Sunday so the family would all be together. She worked during the day, so I had to watch my brother and sister, but she was good. She made sure we were taken care of and we had what we wanted. A little too strict for me, but it was good. She taught me a lot.
Now, did you live in Rochester your whole childhood?
My whole life I lived in Rochester, yes. I lived there till we got married in 55 and moved to Florida. Then we moved back to Rochester because I didn't like Florida. And then we back again to Florida and we stayed.
Now you were a bit of a singer. When did you start singing?
I love to sing in any school play and if they were doing a show, I'd offer, can I be in your show, which they let me. And then we had a radio station on Saturday mornings would let you come. It was called the Amateur Hour, and I went to it as many times until my mother kept saying, you can't go anymore, and I'd win. And you'd win like $5 in movie tickets. And I went 5 times, 4 times I won, and the 5th time I lost. So I was very upset about that.
Tell me, how old are you there? Or what's?
This is, I'm 19. I was getting ready to get married, I believe, and we were going out somewhere at a party for us.
Were you a good student?
So. If I liked the subject, I was good. I never went my senior year to school. I worked part-time in an office. They called it a co-op program. So I only went to school 2 classes in my senior year. But I was okay. I just was nothing special in school.
Did you like any subject you liked best?
I
Whether
like
music,
reading.
math?
I like to read a lot, all different books, and I love the choir. But math, he did my math for me. I'd bring it home, and after he did my math and I took a test, I ended up with a C without any help because he couldn't go with me.
Did you ever watch your father fight?
No, because he when I was, I think 2, he quit. There was an article in the paper when I was born that he had a baby girl was born to Bob K.O.
New York Times.
The New York Times, but
Sports section.
I never got to see him fight. He tried to teach me how to fight. He used to give me gloves.
I know all about
He did,
that.
and he'd really teach me.
And how old were you when you guys met? So tell me, how did you meet?
We met at his sister's wedding. The sister in his picture, Ruth, and she came to Rochester from Florida, and he came with them. And I was gonna be 15, and he was almost 16, and he was all right. You know, he talked and he spoke to everybody, and then he went back a week later to Miami, so I never saw him again for a couple of years.
Do you remember? So you didn't see him, and so how did you go about seeing him again? So you met him at this party,
At the wedding, yeah.
and then he went back to
Then
Florida.
he went
Was
back,
there any?
Yeah, he went back because he was in school. I guess he was in his senior or junior year.
I mean, was there a love connection, or were you just friends?
No, I didn't like him.
Mm.
My cousin liked him and I didn't, and then we traded off. Yeah, he's okay. He always had to tell jokes and do tricks and stuff, and I said, oh, he's okay. But then he came back.
How much later?
When I was 16, about a year and a half later, he came back for the summer. And
Did you keep in touch when he had gone back to Florida?
No.
Uh-huh.
Didn't keep in touch. But then when he came for the summer and he went back, then we started writing to each other.
So when he came back, how long did he come back for?
When he came back the second time, he was 17. He had graduated high school, and he moved in with his sister and her husband. And then we started going out.
But how did you get connected again? So did he look you up? Did you
Well,
look?
because his sister is my aunt. His sister married my uncle.
Uh-huh.
So there was a connection there. So that's how I met him. And he lived upstairs with my grandmother. They had an apartment. So of course I went to my grandmother's house a lot, so I could see him there.
Do you remember your first date?
Yeah,
Where was that?
it was terrible. We went canoeing. We went to the park. We didn't have a car. We took a bus, so we went to one of the parks, and we went canoeing. And then a little bit, and then I said, gee, we should stop now. I want to move. And he took the canoe, and he parked it into a whole thing of bees. And all the bees came out and decided to sting me. And I'm full of bee bites. We didn't have anywhere to go. We walked to an emergency room. Hospital was right nearby. And they took care of me, but we had no money. We had no cards because we were 16, 17 years old. And they were very nice to us, and they gave us a bill to give my father.
She had 13 bee bites.
So you had your first date, and then
That was my first date, yes.
Do you remember your second date? So you guys continued to date for
we
how
saw
long?
it. Yeah, for all that year, the whole year, because he stayed in Rochester. He didn't go back. I was still in school. I was finishing my junior year, And then my senior year, he moved to Rochester, and then he was there that whole time. And then I got engaged in my senior year of high school.
What were some of the things you liked about him? Do you remember?
He just was fun. He was sometimes too fun, but he liked to play jokes, and he liked to do tricks, and he was very generous. He was very generous considering he had a part-time job and did not make a lot of money at the time. He just worked summer jobs and all, but he just was interesting and fun. He just,
How about you, Dad? So what drew you to Mother?
Well, I just knew when I first met her that she was special. She wasn't like anybody I'd met before. She was very caring, and just so interesting. You know, she didn't give herself enough credit for stuff, but she was so good at anything that she really wanted to do, and we just hit it off good right from the beginning.
So how long did you go out before you got engaged? And how did you get
But
engaged?
we had a very strange engagement. I have an uncle who's a jeweler
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo, and he buys diamonds. And we told him we wanted to get married and get engaged and the whole thing. And my mother said, "You're still in high school. You know, you should think first." But nobody really said no. My grandmother liked him very much, and she thought this was a wonderful idea. But we went to my uncle, and he gave us a stone, and we had to go somewhere to have it put in a ring. And we went downtown in Buffalo, found this jeweler, and then he fixed the ring and it got it in my hand, and we went back home. It was really exciting.
Do you remember, Dad, how you asked her to marry you?
You know, it's kind of crazy because it's like we just got along so good from the beginning. It just gradually just assumed that we would be together. It wasn't like, the truth is, I asked her dad more than her, you know what I mean? It was just kind of, that's the way it was going to be. It was, we both felt that way, you know.
And did you have a big wedding? Is this, so here's some, tell me who, this is a wedding picture, right?
Yes, this is my father, my mother, my sister, my brother, and myself.
So how many years were you, once you got engaged, how long did you wait to get married?
About 10 months, because I was at school. I couldn't get out of school fast enough.
So how old were you when you got married?
19
My mother had to sign a paper
for him.
for me to get married because but legally I wasn't 21. You had to be 21 or you had to have a parent's consent.
Did you have a very big wedding? I see you got some beautiful
Yes,
wedding
we did.
pictures.
We had a real nice
So
wedding.
who's in that picture?
This is a picture of Jack's family, of his sisters, his uncle who he went to New York to visit, and myself.
Who's here?
That's another one of Jack's. That's my parents and Jack's parents and Jack and I.
So tell me about, what did you do for your honeymoon?
We drove to, we were driving down to move to Miami. We were going to live down here, but we went to New York. So we drove from Rochester to New York City, and we stayed in a real nice hotel in a very nice area. We went to see Chinatown and the Bowery and everything possible that New York was famous for. And we stayed there about 4 days, and then we drove to
It was kind of
Washington.
interesting when we stayed at Edison. We had a reservation, and when we got there was no room for us. I said, "I'll have a room tomorrow." I said, "What am I supposed to do today?" He said, "Well, we have a place that we only use during the World Series. You could stay there tonight, then we'll move you to the room." We went into a room that must have been able to sleep 30 people. Everything you touched turned into a bed, you know? And we stayed there for the one night, never forgot that. And we stayed at the Edison, which is right off Fifth Avenue. For, you remember how much we paid?
$9 and change.
Yeah, and I went to tax, it was $10 to stay in New York, not today.
So why were you moving to Miami? What made you choose Miami?
Because Dad wanted to go back to Miami.
I thought I was going to have a business opportunity that never really worked out, you know.
So what kind of works have you done that you've liked, or any most rewarding work you've done?
The Red Cross shoe store had a fire. I knew nothing about selling shoes, but they needed bodies. So I sold shoes for the Red Cross, and I wound up selling more shoes than anybody else at the time, so I wound up getting another job in the shoe business, and for quite a while I was a shoe dog, as I call them.
He's always been in sales.
Seems like you guys have traveled quite a bit and you've been to lots of events.
Yes, we have.
So here, show me some of those pictures and tell me where you're at, or some of the more fun trips you've been on.
Tell me where you been, baby.
I'm not sure where they all are. I think this one, he won quite a few trips as a salesman for the company he was working for, and we were sent to Switzerland, and we were in Geneva, we were in, what else? Who else is big in Switzerland?
Zurich.
Zurich, and it was like a road rally. They gave us a car, and they had a map, and we had to drive from Zurich all the way to Geneva. And it was beautiful hotels. I'd never been to Europe or anything, and they treated you royally, and he got his award and all, and we put there for about 6-7 days. Then he won a trip to, let's see where else we went.
Barbara and I are probably the only people you'll ever know who went to, living in Florida, went to Hawaii 3 times and never paid anything. They were all 3 company trips that we won. And the first one we won, when I was working for Toyota, they took the top 7 people in the Southeast. We used to reward the top 50 every year, the top 7, and sent them to Hawaii. The other 45 went to Santo Domingo. And that Hawaii trip was so successful, next year they took the whole 50 back to Hawaii, so we wound up going again. And then when I worked for Bell South, the phone company, we won a trip to Hawaii also, so that's kind of interesting, but we won a lot of trips over there.
And he also won trips with the All-Star games. We went to Chicago, we went to Detroit, we went to Cleveland, and there'd be the game, the show, and everybody entertaining you royally. So we have quite a few trips that we've been to that we never would have gone on our own.
So what are these? Are these pre-marriage? You remember when that is?
That was taken after my junior prom in 1953.
How old are you guys at?
16, 17.
You here?
We had just gotten engaged here. This is our engagement. I'm showing my ring off. We got engaged in October of 1954.
And when is that from?
Oh, that's cute. I know where it's from. We went with my mom and dad up to Canada to a fort there, Fort Erie.
Yeah,
It's an old, I guess, an Indian fort. We weren't married or anything, but they took us on vacation with them. They took us both on vacation.
Tell me about that car.
Ah,
huh?
this is Jack's car. I bought him this car while I was in high school. My kids all know the story. They've heard it over and over. And I was working because I had a good job even though I was in school. And we had no car, and we knew we needed a car when we got married. And I went and bought him a car, and my mother and father hit the roof. Like, you're buying a car, you're not married, you shouldn't do that. But it worked out.
That was in the 50s. I'm still paying for it, believe me. I'm still paying for that car. You know, heard the story more than once. But it's kind of interesting. That was a Dodge that had a Continental kit on it, which was the tire was mounted on the back of the car. And we were on a honeymoon. We drove from New York to Washington, and Washington, actually in Alexandria, Virginia, a guy hit us in the back end, knocked us off the road into a railroad track that sat down below. And our car was so messed up. And we continued driving to Miami with it. We found out that the insurance we got when we bought the car had no collision. We just bought the minimum insurance to drive it off the lot. So that was quite an experience. And so many things got wrecked in the car, but we had some cocktail glasses that were in the trunk.
Well, we got to spend 4 days in Washington, unexpected.
Yeah, well, they tried to get our car to continue to travel.
So what's got Dad so excited there?
Oh,
I should tell them I never had a big birthday party in my life. And when I went to Rochester, Barbara and her cousin arranged a very large surprise birthday party for me, and it was really awesome.
It was his 18th birthday, so we figured he deserved a party.
What's up with that?
Oh, this was, I don't know if you get a close-up of this monkey, but my children are always asking us, our children are always asking us, who is the favorite? And that is the favorite. You know, beautiful monkey, so friendly, never asked for anything, you know what I mean?
Oh, that was the favorite.
Always nods his head, thank you.
What are these honeymoon pictures here?
Yeah,
Yeah. This is before we got married on the beach.
that's you when you were pregnant with
This
Bruce.
is a picture of my first child, 1957. Alan's older brother, and then he has a middle brother. He's the baby of the boys.
That's one of our engagement pictures.
Yes, that's the engagement picture.
Oh, this is at, when we went on a honeymoon south of the border, which is a famous restaurant if you ever drive down I-95. And in 1955, you could eat there. You could have a grilled cheese sandwich, a cup of coffee, and a premium beer, and your tip and be under $1. The grilled cheese sandwich was 35 cents, the coffee was 10 cents, and the beer was 20 cents. We still have the menu from the south of the border in 1955. It was their 5th anniversary.
So who's in this picture? And where do you remember where that's at?
Yes. This is my parents' 50th anniversary in 1983. My brother, my sister, and myself, we all threw a nice party. We came in from Florida to be here.
That's a good picture, you guys. Do you remember where that is? Is that from Orlando?
Yeah, that was.
That was in Orlando when the
This
whole
was taken
family
in
got
Orlando. We
together.
got together at the Holiday Inn,
The whole family.
and that was about 9 years ago.
That was at the Nickelodeon,
the
right?
Nickelodeon in Orlando.
And who's in this picture?
That's
Well, that was our
this is my
family.
niece's wedding. It's the 3 boys and the 2 girls, Jack and I.
One of the few pictures in our family where everybody's wearing a jacket and a tie.
When's that from?
Oh, yeah. This is my graduation from high school in 1955.
Do you happen to remember where that was from?
There was a good hotel on
That's at the Biltmore Hotel.
1997. He had won an award there from work.
That was when I worked for the phone company.
So tell me who's in this photo.
Yes, this is these are our 10 grandchildren. Brittany, Melissa, and it's for my son Bruce, and Gary has 5 children, and I know all their names. Then the 5 grandchildren was Gary, and it's Jacob, and Ben, Jared, Rachel, and Sammy. Alan daughters, Noreen, and this is Jessica and Jonathan, and Linda is the baby of the family, and she has a daughter, Danielle, who is actually getting ready to get married herself.
You were telling me something about. Tell me about this.
This is the Bible that I carried when I got married, which actually came from the uncle in New York that greeted the boat when Jack got off the boat. And my 2 daughters and my daughter-in-law have all carried it, and my granddaughter is planning to carry it also. It's a bride's Bible.
Okay, what I want to do now is I'm just going to kind of go rapid fire. Some of your kids and your grandkids have submitted questions, so either one of you feel free to answer kind of concisely and quickly. If you don't feel like answering one, just go ahead. So either one of you have just good advice just overall in life, whether drink a lot of water or like just any good advice that you'd give to your life experiences?
Well, you know, I always tell all the kids they should always do their best, never give up, even if something seems difficult, they should always do their very best.
Now I know, Dad, you're a bit of a jokester sometimes. You got any favorite jokes?
Any favorite joke? You know, when you get to be in this point in life, I'm 80 years old. Most of the people I talk to are younger than I am. You know, I don't hang out with a lot of 80, 90-year-olds, you know. And I just want to tell people, it's not a joke, but when you get older, there's basically 3 things that happen to you. Number 1, you start forgetting things.
Yes, and?
Who are you?
So, Dad, I hear you do a little bit of magic.
Yeah, I do a little bit. I'm not the best, but it's fun for me. And what I'm gonna do here is talking about memory. It's a little about memory. Barbara, wait, I want everybody to see I'm shuffling the cards. And there's no trick photography in this. This is what you see is what it is. I want you to make 3 piles. Okay, what I'm going to attempt to do, I'm going to attempt to tell you the top card on every pile. Barbara has cut the cards. I have no way of knowing. But I would say this card, I believe, is the 8 of Hearts. Can you remember that, Barbara? What is it?
8 of hearts.
This card, I believe, God, I can't believe it, is a 3 of Hearts.
Okay, 3 of hearts, 8 and 3.
So we have the 8 of Hearts and the 3 card. And this card, I believe, is the 5 of Spades. What are the 3 cards, Barbara?
8 of hearts, 3 of
Wait a
hearts,
minute.
and 5 of spades.
Yay, Barbara! Yay!
Either of you have a favorite movie, favorite song? Whether you have a favorite song that you think of?
I do. The song, well, because when he went back home, he'd write to me a lot, every single day, from Miami to Rochester, all the time. And there was a song out by the Hilltoppers. It was called P.S. I Love You. And every time he signed a letter to me, he'd write P.S. I Love You. So I like that song. That was my favorite song. What was yours?
I like the song that Eddie Fisher made, and it was on the same vein as Barbara's. It was Wish You Were Here.
So you guys, over 60 years of marriage, what's the secret? How have you done it? Has it all been good, or?
Be careful.
You know, it's never always good. I mean, you always have problems, but nothing, you know, when we go to bed at night, everything is good. And really, we've been very, very fortunate in life that we've really never had that big problem that so many married people have, you know, so
I think we both pretty much are on the same page all the time. We don't really looking for great riches and to do unbelievable things. I think to me, the grandchildren, the children are more important to me than anything than whatever. But we do enjoy ourselves now. Like we're going on a cruise every year on our anniversary. The last 5 years we've gone on a cruise, and just being around the kids, baseball with the boys, the grandson and the girls, and recitals and all.
we're just involved with their lives, you know, what they're interested in, we find it interesting. And you know, the truth is, it is interesting, you know, and you learn a lot about what's going on in the world from the young people, because it's things we're not really in touch with.
One of the grandkids wanted to know, what's the most rewarding moment as a couple, other than the birth of your children?
Wow.
Getting married.
I tell you, a very rewarding thing was when Denver won the Super Bowl last year. You know? That kind of was good for us, you know, because it's hard to pick the winner of that. So, but there've been so many rewarding moments in our life. I couldn't pick one as the best.
How about, what was the first impression of each other? Like, maybe like you go first, Dad. Your very first impression of Mother.
Wow. I'll tell you 2 things she did that were weird. I had rented a tuxedo for the wedding, and it came with a hat that I would never, ever wear a hat like that, but everybody wore them. And she stole my hat. I didn't even know that good. Where do you think she put it? She put it in the ladies' room. Now, if it was my hat, I wouldn't have cared, but I gotta give this back to the rental company, you know what I mean? It's just like sort of crazy. And then when I went back, when I came up to Rochester, when she's first meeting me, she did something that her mother would have went crazy. She dyed her hair a bright blonde. And then she was wearing a Navy cap to cover it up so nobody would know it, you know.
For 3 days.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting first impression.
Now, what did I hear? Did you have a pet alligator or?
You know, one time her brother, I was buying him a gift. I was in Rochester. I called a friend in Miami. There was a store that sold baby alligators. And what we did is we built a box, Gene and I told him I was getting the alligator. And I'm at work during a busy time of year. And Barbara calls me from her house. She says, look, the mailman came. He had a package. And I did what you said. I was going to turn it upside over the box to drop him in the box. He jumped out. He's on the floor growling. Where are you? I'm on the dining room table with my sister. And I said, what do you want me to do? She says, do something. I said, well, you call the police or something. They'll probably kill it, you know what I mean? But finally her cousin came, picked up the alligator, put it in the bathtub, filled the bathtub with water. Her mother came home from work, and the first thing she did went in the bathroom, and she saw this alligator, and you know.
We had called the newspaper. My sister and I thought it was really interesting. I said, there's an alligator and it's here, and then how big is he? I said, he's 12 feet. I didn't think I was saying feet, and this guy's like, he's got a 12-foot. There, it's 12 inches. It's a 12 inch.
They knew it had to be a
They
goofy
thought it
call.
was some kind of goofy call, but they said, well, tell us everything you can. And, well, you just better hurry, you better get here, you know, and it's roaming around. It was that big.
But Ali, what we
We
learned,
named him, too.
what we learned is they don't survive well in cold weather like Rochester. And he wouldn't eat. We bought him food and whatever we bought him, he,
But my brother made him a funeral.
yeah, they made him a funeral.
Gave him by the tree.
Yeah, this is Jack. We're going to be signing off now, but we just hope that you enjoyed some of the interesting things that have happened in our life that you might not have known about. And we enjoyed sharing it. We hope you enjoyed listening to it. And you're always welcome here, and we'll share whatever you want to know with you. Barbara?
Yes, this is Barbara, and I want to thank you all for listening to our story, hearing everything that's gone on that you may not have known or remembered. But it's been a wonderful life because of all of you, and we look forward to many, many more good times.
Good
We
job.
love you all.
You know, 60 years of marriage, it's something that Barbara and I accomplished that not too many people do, and it's been great, and we hope to continue it being great.
Hey.